If there's no questions, all right.
Hello? I have a question. Municipal bylaw, Call Avenue, 16. What's that all about?
Municipal bylaws, Call Avenue 16, that was a complaint from one person about her neighbor, and the municipal bylaw had to do with dogs defecating in her property, and
Oh, yes, okay.
yeah,
Defecate.
yes.
15 times.
16.
16.
Oh, what do you mean?
Did the dog defecate 16 times?
We seized, the evidence is downstairs if you care to examine it.
Thanks very much, but I'll pass on that one. I'll pass on that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank Chief Hoback and Inspector Pons for attending the Special Olympics Gala at the Halifax Convention Center. And congratulate Chief Hoback on his team winning Team of the Year. Congrats.
Your mic is off again.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion to accept the activity report?
I so move.
Moved by Commissioner Taylor, second by
I'll second.
Commissioner Mason. Y'all heard the motion? Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, I'm going to turn this portion over to Brenda.
You mentioned you were going to do 4B, mental health.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Memory's good, it's just short. Yeah, I just gonna ask the chief, I was at a mental health meeting today, and they were talking about different organizations that collaborate with the police in New Glasgow. Do they collaborate with you as well, do you know, for the mental health?
Yes, yeah, they have either monthly or quarterly meetings. They're CIT meetings, and we have them at the Aberdeen Hospital,
Okay,
just in relation to procedures and ways of streamlining the process to take some of it off the police, basically.
there's another position coming open in the province, and they just made funds available, they hadn't hired them yet, and they're gonna be working in the mental health field, working with people that have issues or whatever. So, I don't know if they're gonna contact you, but maybe if you called over to the mental health and you spoke to them, sometime and see what's out there, so that we're kept abreast of it, because I know Glasgow's on top of it. So, and the other question is, if you get a mental health call, like if somebody calls and said, look, my son is having issues in that, when you go to the call, do you take somebody from mental health with you?
Not currently, no.
No? You know you can, right? You know you can get a hold of them and they'll send somebody.
If our person has received the training through some of the programs they offer, then we can, yes.
Okay, so you have officers that are trained?
Yes. we
Okay,
do,
good,
yeah.
thank you. That's all I want to know.
Just before we leave mental health, did we not have a presentation last year on mental health? Because I watched that on the council. There was two ladies come in and talked.
Yes.
Is that part of the same scheme as what you're talking about, or is this something different?
Those ones, as I understood, like they
It was
deal with
different. Yeah.
people now that have issues like maybe filling forms out or they have to go to court. I think that was an O'Farrell girl was one of them. That's the one you're talking about, Tony?
It could be, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the training now they're offering, we just had one of our officers attend, is dealing in particular with people in a mental health crisis. And what they're doing now is they lost some funding for some of these programs, but they're trying to work on programs where it's almost like a hub model where if somebody's taken in to the hospital with mental health issues, they have the people there to direct them to the agencies or to the care that they need. And the police are becoming part of that, but only if we have the training. So we're trying to get as many of our members trained as we can.
We've been asking in the meeting we had this morning, we asked them to give us a breakdown on what has transpired or how they advanced in this with the mental health, because there are some advances made in mental health now here in Pictou County, but nobody's aware of it. And in this conversation, it was zoomed in, I guess, there was some people from the head office and there is going into the budget a considerable amount for mental health. So one of the big things was I know that the Robert Parker was bringing up, and that was a concern, was to make sure that we got a share of it because the money's coming out for health in particular, but he wanted to know if there was enough going to be funneled into mental health, which is going to open up the door for other agencies and different people to be hired to help down the road. But there is a trauma group there now. I call them trauma, and that's why I'm trying to find out what they call them. But there is a group there now that work, I think it's from 8 to 6 or something like that in the hospital. So if there's an issue, this here group are trained in mental health, and they will go in and help them with. And there is a process of triage. But as soon as I can get them to give me a breakdown on it, then I'll give it to you guys and council, so they all have a chance to see it. Is there any other questions on mental health?
Well, another follow-up then I would have is, you had 15 calls there for mental health this month. Was that a cross-section of all kinds of people, or just?
Yes, yeah, it was. It wasn't the same place. It was a
Okay,
cross-section.
and have you ever looked at the time of day? Because 8 to 5 is not necessarily.
Yeah, I understand that, but they're on call. There's assistants there 24 hours. But they're there from 8 to 12, Monday to Friday, but they are available. There's psychologists and psychiatrists available now in the hospital. Is there any other questions, Donnie?
Never tracked the time frame of when those things occur?
No, they would be like anything else, they'd be various throughout.
We just had two this after, around lunchtime, when I was downstairs, we just had two mental health calls. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And I'll say this, Don, the call, without getting into specifics, was somebody doing some damage in the home. Was a child, an older child, not a wee one, but doing some damage, smashing some stuff, going through a mental health crisis. So they call us, and when we go, it becomes criminal, and it shouldn't become criminal because it's not a criminal matter. But by virtue of us being there, sometimes it turns into a criminal matter, and our powers are limited to what we can do. We're not psychologists, and we end up sometimes taking people out in handcuffs when they're not, they shouldn't be. It's just.
That's a good point that I can certainly pass along.
And the unfortunate thing, you say there's someone that can go with you. Like we've had 15 mental health calls, Westville probably had 15 health calls, and Glasgow probably had 40, the RCMP probably had 60. So
Yeah.
just because there's someone available,
Our access to them is
Yeah.
limited, yeah.
Very limited.
I mean,
they
the
might
thing-
be there, but we might not ever get a chance to ever use them.
It could get expensive for, like, we're of course helping people, but before I'm told that the turnaround hour was 3 or 4 hours. And now it's longer, but we're hoping this is improved. That's one of the things that we're working towards, is having a better system there. And there's supposed to be people there. This trauma group, or this group is there, and they're on call, and they're in the hospital, and there's psychiatrists and that available.
It seems to me that probably the real saving would be in the training for the police. More people being trained so that you could at least defuse it until you get a pro there.
Yeah, because a lot of times you'll see the police show up with as mild as you go into it, will escalate a problem just like variance.
Yeah, well, it's like the white coat syndrome, they used to call in the hospital. Once they see the police on uniform, of course, and that spurs them off. You had that probably too yeah. All righty. Is there any other questions on mental health, or please move on? And, okay, it's Brenda, you're on.
All right, you have the preliminary budget in front of you. To the left column is the preliminary budget for 24-25, the budget for 23-24, and the forecast for 23-24. And at this point, there's nothing confirmed in the 23-24 numbers. It's just a forecasting. So we go down through the budget. Police wages at 1.4 million. That's for the chief, 10 full-time, 3 part-time and term, and benefits. So overall, in a full $2.3 million budget, 2 million of it is related to people costs. So there's very limited movement in this budget. So the police benefits of 359, so police wages and benefits about 1.776, dispatch and admin support at 250,000, and that, of course, is the Truro contract at this point. Comparing the forecast for wages from 23-24 to the budget, you will see a small decrease, and that's related to a sick leave during 23-24. So when there's a sick leave, we're paying for the person off, and we're paying for the person to replace them. So we always budget a full complement of staff, and we allow for overtime and terms, but there's always the opportunity for the budget to be exceeded for circumstances that you cannot anticipate, such as a sick leave. Overall, $2 million, as I said, for people costs. Other expenses of the police to the total of $287,000. Our supplies, IT, and admin at $74,800. That does include $6,000 for a speed sign. There's allowances in there for computers and allowances in there for IT support. Vehicle fuel at $40,000. Vehicle repair, maintenance, and insurance at $32,000. All these numbers are comparable to prior years. The operating leases at $39,000. There's new leases and the rates are up. Crosswalk guards at $30,000. Training, travel, and conferences at $16,500. Uniforms for $12,000. That does include the boot allowance. Safe Communities program, that's a third-party invoicing at $15,000. Animal control at $10,000. Legal and prosecution at $10,000. That number, as you can see, can be as low as $1,000 and can be as high as $30,000. Contract negotiations, because we have a new union contract effective April 1 for $7,500. Costs estimated, as I said, total of $287 for non-people costs for an overall budget of $2.3. As you'll note, it's a small decrease actually over the forecast for 23-24, and again, that's related to the sick leave.
Any questions? Steph, you did good. Compliment the chief on the great job he did, keeping the budget down.
Yeah, I'd like to echo those comments. Good job keeping the budget within reasonable amounts. And just on the fuel, should we adjust that for the carbon tax, do you think?
We can. The budget's not finalized yet, so if we learn a little bit more about again, I always describe a budget's not a pot of money to spend, it's an estimate of where we think we are, so there may be some things that go over budget and some things that come in under budget. If we should be anticipating more on the fuel, we certainly can add more, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to point out, I asked the chief if all our officers had their blues, and he was telling me where one of our officers willing to take a pass down from an officer that left, and rather than going into a full new uniform. So, the police force are being frugal and trying to work within budgets. Must compliment them on that.
I just have a couple IT questions. That 74, does that include some replacement of computers?
It does.
As far as evergreening goes, life cycling, brand new computers coming in. There was also the video backup. I don't know if Luke was talking to you.
So I just got an email yesterday from Luke, so I plan on speaking to him tomorrow, just to I got a detailed list of what he had spoken with you. So I will go through this with him and the chief tomorrow, just to see. And in speaking briefly with the chief this morning, there are, the server, that's already embedded in there.
The server's embedded in there?
Yes.
And the additional support that's going to come with that for Luke?
Yes, the IT costs are embedded in the budget already.
Okay.
So the only thing that I need to talk to Chief about, and when we talked about it, talking about the budget, was the live scan.
Yes.
He had indicated that that was probably not necessary until next year, and that is something that we cost share with the town of Westville.
Yeah. Whether it's 50-50 or 60-40, we'll see. But can you, you're going to be about 50 grand for that.
Yeah, and
Can you put some aside each year, or is that just going to be a solid?
No, we don't do it that way. It'll
Don't do it
just
that
go
way?
into a capital budget and like I said, and the chief indicated that that was probably not necessary until next year.
Yeah, Luke was estimating another, 18 months before that would come into effect,
Yeah.
so, okay. I was just wondering, you set some aside each year for
No,
that?
no.
Or that's just going to be a straight capital cost next year?
And that's why we have reserves
Okay, good enough.
for things like that.
Or we
Or we can borrow,
exactly.
or you pay for it out of the tax rate and within the budget.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
We can go back to rolling the ink.
Wouldn't do that.
Is there any other?
No, thank you.
You're welcome. I would just like to add that in the overall budget, the policing side of things does have some offsetting revenue that does not get reflected in this budget because revenue is reflected in revenue, but the town does receive about $100,000 for the street crime, and then the offsetting dispatch charges and some fines and fees. So there is a little bit of revenue, but not significant in comparison to the 2.3 million
How
budget.
much is it about the revenue?
200-ish, yeah, about 200,000 in
It was about
revenue.
2.1 net, the cost. of the
About
service.
2.1 net.
So does Westville still pay for cells if they use them?
Yes,
That's
we have
part of it.
we have a sale of service agreement with the town of Westville for cells and dispatching services.
Okay, okay. So that's part of what you're talking about.
Is there any other questions? So I guess I'd like a motion to recommend the budget to the council.
Yep, I'll make a motion to recommend the approval of the police budget to council.
Motion made by Commissioner Mason, seconded by Commissioner Kay, that we recommend this budget as presented to council for the next fiscal 24-25 year. Thank you. You all heard the motion? Question? All in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
Just wanted to thank Brenda for presenting the information. I think it's a good idea that's presented in this forum, so it's thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Brenda, taking the time. So our next meeting is April the 4th. I motion adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
I'll second.
Okay, Brenda's going to stay.